Imagine standing at the foot of the ultimate monster climb on the Queen stage. The air is razor thin, the gradients are painfully steep, and the legs of the world's best cyclists are burning with absolute agony. Thousands of passionate fans are packed along the roadside, banging on barriers, waving flags, and screaming at the top of their lungs. The atmosphere is electric, heavy with anticipation, because everyone watching knows that this is the day the entire race will be decided. There are no excuses left, no teammates to hide behind, and nowhere to run. It is man against man, pure human endurance pushed to the absolute breaking point. Up to this moment, Louis Barré had been riding with incredible poise, holding onto the leader's jersey with grit and determination. He had survived every tactical move, covered every minor acceleration, and looked entirely capable of defending his throne. The momentum was fully on his side, and many believed he had the tactical composure to close out the race. But high-altitude instages don't care about past performances or comfortable gaps. They demand perfection, and the moment a rider shows even a fraction of vulnerability, the predators in the peloton instantly smell blood in the water. Enter Isaac Del Toro. Calm, collected, and sitting comfortably in the wheels, Del Toro was playing the long game. While the rest of the main contenders were breathing heavily and desperately trying to stay hydrated, Del Toro looked like he was barely breaking a sweat. He wasn't rushing. He was waiting for the exact moment when the gradient pitched up into double digits, where power-to-weight ratio is the only thing that matters. As the chase group thinned out to just a handful of elite climbing specialists, the tension reached a boiling point. You could see the body language shifting, shoulders dropping, heads bobbing, and frantic glances back and forth to see who would break first. Then, in a single heartbeat, the explosive spark hit. Del Toro didn't just step on the pedals, he unleashed an absolute tactical bomb. Sitting in the saddle 1 second, standing up and violently launching forward the next, his acceleration was so violent, so sudden, that it sent shockwaves right through the entire lead group. Barré's eyes widened in sheer disbelief as Del Toro opened up a gap in a matter of seconds. It wasn't a subtle probe or a test acceleration, it was an all-out, merciless attack designed to break the spirit of anyone foolish enough to try and follow. Welcome back to the channel, cycling fans. If you live for high-stakes mountain drama, brutal attacks, and legendary race-defining moments, you are in the exact right place. Today, we are diving deep into the brutal, tactical battle that left Louis Barré completely defenseless on the Queen stage and handed Isaac Del Toro a massive 72-second lead. Drop a comment right now and let me know, did you expect Del Toro to be this dominant on the climbs? Hit that like button, lock in, and let's break down how this unbelievable move shook the cycling world to its core. When an attack of that magnitude hits, the human body reacts instantaneously. For Louis Barré, the sight of Isaac Del Toro exploding off the front wasn't just a tactical problem, it was an immediate physical crisis. On gradients pushing 10, 11, 12%, there is nowhere to hide. You can't draft behind a teammate, you can't fake your rhythm, and you certainly can't bluff your way out of a mountain crisis. Barré tried to respond in the first few meters, shifting gears down and standing out of the saddle to match the sudden surge of power. But trying to go toe-to-toe with an explosive climber, who is in absolute peak form, is a dangerous game, and Barré paid the price almost immediately. Within 10 seconds, the red line was crossed. Barré's breathing became ragged, his shoulders began to roll heavily from side to side, and the smooth, fluid pedal stroke that had carried him through the early stages of the race completely dissolved. His heart rate shot into the stratosphere, and the buildup of lactic acid in his legs hit like a wall of concrete. Realizing that trying to follow Del Toro's wheel directly would result in a total physical collapse, Barré was forced to make a split-second decision: back off the pace settle into a desperate chase rhythm, and try to minimize the damage. Up ahead, Del Toro looked like a machine. His upper body remained dead silent. His posture was aerodynamically compact even while climbing, and every single watt of power was being transferred directly into the tarmac. He wasn't looking back. He knew that the mental battle in cycling is won when the rider behind you sees the gap widening with every turn of the pedals. 5 meters became 10, 10 meters became 20, and before the chase group could even organize a response, Del Toro was out of sight, disappearing around a sweeping hairpin bend. For Barré, those remaining kilometers of the climb turned into a nightmare scenario. The leader's jersey, once a symbol of pride and dominance, now felt like a heavy weight dragging him down the mountain. Behind him, the remnants of the main chase group were frantically looking at each other, trying to decide who would take the lead to pull Del Toro back. But no one wanted to burn their own legs to save Barré's jersey. The hesitation in the pursuit group was all the encouragement Del Toro needed. With every passing meter, the virtual gap on the road kept ticking upward 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. This was no longer just a race for a stage win. It was a full-blown crisis for the general classification leadership. Barré was digging deep into his reserve tanks, fighting with every ounce of willpower left in his body, but the physical reality of the Queen's stage was settling in. In the next section, we are diving into the heart of the tactical chaos, how Del Toro expanded that gap to a staggering 72 seconds, and how the descent became an even bigger battleground. As Isaac Del Toro crested the summit of the Queen's stage, the real masterclass was only just beginning. Most riders who put in such a violent, all-out attack on a brutal ascent naturally look for a moment to catch their breath, grab a gel, and ease off the pedals once the road levels out. But Del Toro had zero intention of letting his rivals recover. Crossing the peak with a growing gap, he didn't coast for even a fraction of a second. Instead, he tucked into a razor-sharp aerodynamic position, clicked into a heavier gear, and carried his explosive momentum straight into the technical, high-speed descent. Descending off a high-altitude mountain pass is a game of pure nerves, millimeter precision, and absolute courage. The roads are narrow, sweeping around blind hairpin turns with sheer drops on one side and jagged rock faces on the other. One slight miscalculation, one slip of the tire, and your entire season can end in a split second. But Del Toro navigated every single corner like he was on rails, leaning his bike aggressively into the turns, hitting the apex of every curve with pinpoint accuracy, and accelerating out of the bends with terrifying power. Behind him, total panic had officially set in. Louis Barré was completely isolated, forced to chase without any remaining teammates to guide him or cut the wind. The chase group behind Barré was splintered, with individual riders making selfish tactical decisions, rather than working together to pull Del Toro back. Nobody wanted to spend their remaining energy pulling rivals along, and that complete lack of cooperation in the chase group was a massive gift to the man off the front. Every time the pursuit stalled, or a rider refused to take a pull at the front, Del Toro was tucking in and adding precious seconds to his lead. The gap on the race motorcyclist timing board began to tick upward rapidly. What started as a modest 15-second cushion at the top of the climb quickly stretched to 30 seconds halfway down the mountain. By the time Del Toro hit the flatter, wind-swept valley roads leading toward the final sector, the gap had ballooned to a staggering 45 seconds. Barré was digging as deep as humanly possible, his face contorted in sheer pain as he pushed every watt his exhausted body could produce. But he was fighting a losing battle against a rider in total flow state. It was a mesmerizing display of modern cycling strategy. Attack hard on the steep gradients, exploit the chaos on the technical descent, and drive the nail into the coffin on the flat run-in. as the final kilometer banner came into view. Del Toro wasn't just riding for the stage victory, was riding to completely reset the general classification standings. In the next section, we are diving into the breathtaking finish line finish, the official time gap breakdown, and the exact moment Louis Barré realized his leader's jersey was gone. The final stretch of the Queen's stage was pure cinematic drama. The crowds lined the metal barriers 10 deep, pounding on the signage and creating a wall of deafening sound as Isaac Del Toro emerged from the last corner. Sweated-soaked, covered in road grit, but looking completely triumphant, Del Toro sat up on his pedals, unzipped his jersey, and pointed to his chest before pounding his handlebars in absolute joy. He crossed the finish line in magnificent isolation, stopping the clock and setting the standard for everyone behind him. It was a massive statement victory, the kind of performance that instantly elevates a young rider into genuine superstar status. But as Del Toro celebrated with his team staff just past the line, all eyes frantically turned back up the road to watch the timing clock. The real battle was no longer about who won the stage. It was a desperate race against the clock to see if Louis Barré could save his overall lead. Every single tick of the digital timer felt like an eternity. 10 seconds pass, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. The official race commentators were counting down out loud as the cameras panned up the final straight, desperately searching for the yellow jersey. When Barré finally rounded the final bend, the physical toll of his pursuit was painfully obvious to everyone watching. His head was slumped, his jersey unzipped to his stomach, and his chest heaving with desperate gasps for air. He was sprinting with everything he had left, but his legs were completely empty, locked up with extreme fatigue. As he crossed the line, his eyes immediately went to the electronic scoreboard overhead. The numbers were brutal, 52 seconds. Barré didn't just lose the stage, he had been completely dethroned. The gap was so massive that it stripped him of the leader's jersey on the spot. Overcome by pure exhaustion and total heartbreak, Barré slumped forward over his handlebars immediately after crossing the line, completely spent, unable to even unclip his shoes for several seconds as team soigneurs rushed to catch him. The contrast couldn't have been sharper. On one side of the finish area, Del Toro was celebrating an absolute tactical masterclass, while on the other, the former race leader was coming to terms with a devastating defeat. A 52-second swing on a single mountain stage completely changes the psychological dynamic of a Grand Tour-style race. It forces the former leader into a defensive posture, requiring them to make risky attacks on upcoming stages, while giving the new leader complete tactical leverage. In our fifth and final part, we are going to analyze the massive fallout of this result, look at the updated GC standings, and discuss whether anyone can actually stop Isaac Del Toro from taking this victory all the way to the final podium. The aftermath of this brutal Queen stage has sent absolute shockwaves through the entire professional cycling world. A 52-second swing in a modern, highly competitive stage race isn't just a minor setback, it is a massive psychological and tactical crater in the general classification standings. By completely dismantling Louis Barré on the hardest climb of the race, Isaac Del Toro hasn't just claimed the leader's jersey, he has completely reshaped the entire narrative of this event and announced himself as an absolute dominant force on the high-altitude roads. Now, the entire dynamic of the race completely flips on its head. Heading into the remaining stages, Del Toro no longer has to play the role of the aggressive attacker who needs to invent opportunities out of thin air. With a comfortable 52-second cushion resting on his shoulders, he can transition into a disciplined, defensive posture. His team can control the tempo of the main peloton from the front, neutralize the early breakaway attempts, and force rival teams to waste precious energy attempting risky long-range moves. For Louis Barré and his team, the tactical playbook just got infinitely more complicated. Chasing down a 52-second deficit against a mountain climber of Del Toro's caliber means they can no longer afford to sit back and wait for a sprint finish or a late-stage acceleration. They will be forced to take massive, high-risk gambles attacking early on exposed